What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Body Lock. It's your man, Ant Walker, here to preview UFC 257. Joining me, two good friends, two colleagues that you are very familiar with on this channel, Matthew Wells and the CEO, CPA, Dr. DNA PIMP, Pat OJ. Pat, Matt, what's going on?
What's happening, man? all the initials in the world, the whole alphabet. Yeah, man, I'm ready to break down this card, man. It's going to be a good one.
Absolutely. So, of course, the main event is Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, the rematch. In case you haven't heard, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but that fight is actually going to happen. So, yeah, it's really flying under the radar. But in the effort to steal as much of your time as humanly possible on this video here, we're going to talk about the main card from the bottom up. So, the fight opens with Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Ribas. That is the curtain jerker for the pay-per-view. Fellas, this is a strawweight contest in a very crowded division, consistently a very exciting division. Two of the hotter names rising up the rankings right now. What are your initial thoughts? How do you see this fight playing out?
Personally, I see this fight being a pretty entertaining one. I think it's a good matchup style-wise for both. But I think it's also an opportunity for Amanda Ribas to really go out there and make a name for herself, currently being number 10 in the division. This is a type of fight. It's a type of platform for her to show what she is capable of doing, coming off the back of her most recent win over Paige Van Zandt. It's a good spot for her to really get her name out there on a card where a lot of eyes will be watching. So, combine that with her personality. She goes out there and gets a finish. Let's say she slaps on a submission and gets a tap and then gets on that mic with her bubbly personality. She's going to make a whole lot of new fans.
Definitely. Pat, anything you see playing out differently? You think Ribas gets it done, or will this be Rodriguez's time to shine?
This one's tough for me because, Ribas has looked really good, 4-0 in the UFC, was supposed to fight Michelle Waterson, which would have been a bigger name. They're clearly trying to push her, right? She's doing great in interviews. She's giggle machine, just constant, wholesome content. So it's one of those things where this is an interesting fight because Marina Rodriguez is one of those people who tends to wrestle and do very well in a particular round or two and then struggle in the rest, right? She's gone to 2 draws. She has beaten Tisha Torres, which is a huge name. I mean, she's not a slouch. And, when you look at the odds, I think Ribas is sitting around -325, something like that. It definitely makes it seem like Ribas is favored, but Marina Rodriguez is one of those tough outs that is always going to give you a tough fight, it seems. I compare it to John Dodson in the bantamweight division, right? Everybody that fought John Dodson, even Petr, you always had some struggle there. It was never really that easy to beat him for such a long time. So I think Ribas will get it done, but I think it's going to end up being a decision and going to be a lot closer than people think it would be.
You know what? I think this, you guys are definitely onto something here. I'm looking at the matchup itself and how this does favor Ribas. They did try to give her a good look with Michelle Waterson, a big name, a huge name, actually, in that division. She withdrew, unfortunately. But you see the groundwork being laid. If you are going to beat someone like Michelle Waterson, you're probably going to have to rely on a very heavy grappling plan. That's probably going to be on your agenda. So I think we already see the promotion favoring her and wanting to do something with her with a personality like that and, a killer instinct that she does show. You feel like you want to be the UFC making the smart move and boosting this woman's profile. So I think this is still in their mind, and Rodriguez serves as a high enough level opponent without getting into true stylistic danger. Someone who is in the top 10, someone who has fought some of the best in the world, but at the same time, isn't exactly the killer in that division. So I like what they're doing with Amanda Ribas, and of course Rodriguez can upset those plans as we see in mixed martial arts quite frequently. Gentlemen, so the next fight on the card, Ottman Azaitar against Matt Frevola. This is a lightweight contest, promises a lot of action. I don't see any shortage of violence in this bout. Matt, I'll begin with you. Where do you see this fight playing out?
I see this one being a very straightforward type of fight from Ottman. I mean, he's a super aggressive fighter, and he's looking to go and get everybody out of there, right? I mean, just look at his results. He finishes people 3 first-round finishes in a row. The guy's coming to take heads off. His opponent, Matt Frevola, though, he's more of a slower, calculated type of fighter, but he will try to also swing for the fences at times. But he's going to be I think he's going to be more on the defensive end, trying to weather that initial storm and see if he can't take rounds off of him. I don't see his game plan being the approach of I need to go out here and get a finish. I think the approach from their camp on the Frevola side is to wear this guy down, just look good for the judges and to try to win rounds and try to outlast that initial onslaught. So that's what it comes down to. If he can avoid that, then he probably has a good chance of winning this fight. But you got to watch out for some heavy hands and some really, really aggressive forward pressure.
On a card that is dominated, at least from the marquee, by lightweights, I think it means a lot to have an action-heavy matchup at lightweight on the main card. Pat, is that what you're seeing too? Do you think this is going to be a great showcase for one of these gentlemen on a card where their division is in the driver's seat?
I think it's going to be when I look at this matchup again. I see this as a promotional push, honestly, for Ottman Azaitar, and here's the reason why. Frevola has looked pretty good in his last outings, but he did win a split decision over Luis Pena. He's looked solid enough, but he also has a chin that hasn't held up to fighters like Polo Reyes in 2018, just a couple years ago. And Ottman's just been, as Matt said, knocking people out. Karma Worthy was the favorite in that fight. Was supposed to go out there, just dust him, and Ottman flipped it on him. Just laid him out. And if you look at this guy's career, that's his whole MO. He's a little bit of a slow to start. He takes some shots here and there, but he just unloads at times, just seems perfectly timed to knock people out. So when you're looking at putting on the, where they're placed as well, the second fight on the main card is generally the worst spot you want to be in terms of drawing a casual audience for a fighter. That's what Paul Gift's study found. That's what various surveys have found. That spot is kind of the worst because it's far enough away from the main event. If somebody's going to order the pay-per-view late, you're probably not going to get any eyes. And if somebody's ordering the pay-per-view right away, they're going to look at the first fight. They may, leave, come back when Conor and Dustin are on. So I think this is a fight designed to make Ottman more popular within the hardcore ranks. I think if he goes out there, he lays out Frevola, it's, okay, now you got to kind of look at this guy, and then maybe they put him again on a higher spot in the main card. But I think that's really what this is again, just a push by the UFC. Because honestly, I have this one going just, first round knockout for Azaitar based on what I've seen.
That's pretty much my assessment of how the fight plays out as well. I think Ottman gets it done and makes it look fairly easy in the process. I think it's also important to note this is the second out of his third his 3 UFC appearances in Abu Dhabi. There's a reason why he is being pushed in this spotlight right here. He is a Muslim fighter in a Muslim majority land, and it just makes sense to put an action guy with that background on the main card. It's the equivalent of booking a regional talent that you'd find in any other show out there. So I think Ottman is going to have quite the showcase on Saturday. So, of course, now we're going to move on to the women's flyweight division. Former title challenger Jessica Ai is going to be against someone who did just recently lose their number 1 contender spot in that division. That's Joanne Calderwood. This probably is one that is on the main card simply because of the ranking and the title implications of the fight. Quite honestly, though, I don't think this is going to deliver from an aesthetic standpoint. I don't think this is one that we're going to be clamoring to rewatch and analyze, and the fans are necessarily the most hyped for. Fellas, am I talking crazy or am I right here?
I think you're 100% on point with this. This fight should have been the final prelim fight. That's where this fight should have fallen, in my opinion. I could definitely see this being a decision type of fight where neither one really, go for the glory, so to speak, right? I don't see either one of them trying to do anything crazy and take chances because they both need a win here. I mean, they're both coming off of losses, so that's crazy that fight is placed before the co-main event where you have two fighters coming off of losses. Like you said, if rankings weren't, in play here and potential title implications and all that sort of thing, this fight wouldn't be on this main card. So I'm thinking this is going to be the most boring fight on the main card, to be honest with you. Not to say that, the winner isn't deserving of their place in the division or anything like that. But like you said, this is not going to be one to write home about. I don't think. I could definitely see this. I mean, whatever the over-under is at the betting window in terms of, rounds, it should be over 2.5, I believe, probably. And that's, go ahead and chalk this up to being a decision type of fight. I'm not particularly excited to watch this one, but the winner will find themselves in a good position in this division, though. All
right, so Pat, I'm gonna kick it over to you. Who do you think does get their hand raised in the end? Who does solidify at least some claim to title contention once this is all over with?
Oof, this is a close fight, to be honest, in terms of picking the winner. I would say that they have a skill set that matches up against each other. Just quickly to back up what both of you guys said, when you have Arman Tsarukyan versus Nasrat on the prelims, and you're talking about showcasing lightweight, that is the fight that 100% should be somewhere on this main card. So I don't know what the UFC is doing here, but in terms of the fight itself, I think Joanne will get it done. I think it's going to be tough. Jessica Ai is not a pushover. I mean, she outside of losing to Calvillo and Shevchenko, of course. I mean, she's looked very good at flyweight. She's really had a career resurgence there. She probably should have been cut until she got that chance to go to flyweight, and then she really made it work for her. JoJo, it's hard to see. I call this the cringiest fight on the card by far because it's sad cringe to watch JoJo give up her title shot and then faint backstage after losing. And then you've got the old Jessica, here we go, evil, here we go, woof, woof, there we go. Is that cringe? I hope, I know if you're watching this video, that just made you cringe. So, I think JoJo gets it done in a long, boring decision, but I could see it going the other way too. It's a toss-up for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm thinking Jessica gets it done. First off, I'm happy that she did not bring her bulletproof vest with her to Abu Dhabi. So let's just get that out of the way. That's one of the worst moments in pre-fight trash talk I've ever seen in my life. But I think that she's sort of the neutralizer type of fighter. With the exception of Shevchenko, no one has really looked good even defeating her. And typically she's just so good at stifling whatever you plan on doing. I think she's going to slow this pace down to a crawl, but to her benefit in the eyes of the judges. And I think she gets that, really, really pedestrian decision that we're probably going to be just absolutely throwing things at the TV out of anger for. So there's that. I mean, at least when it's time to get your beer. Now, fellas, let's move on to the co-main event of UFC 257. This is a highly, highly anticipated fight right here. The UFC debut of former Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler, arguably the best fighter that has grown from that promotion. Now he is in the octagon against Dan Hooker. Man, this just sounds like action written all over it. At the end of the day, though, I think Dan Hooker gets it done. I think Chandler coming into the UFC at this point has had more than enough knocks on his chin. I think even Hooker's style is something that Chandler at his best would have a difficult time dealing with. Dan Hooker is my winner here. Matt, are you in agreement with me or are you wrong?
I guess I'm wrong because I like Michael Chandler in this matchup. He's had more time off to prepare for this moment. You know, he had the dry run, so to speak, where he was the quote unquote backup out in Abu Dhabi. He's done the whole thing at least once, right? And that's what he's been talking about and embedded in the lead up to this fight and all his interviews, talking about that he had a dry run to prepare for his UFC debut. And now it's the real thing. So he's more comfortable with everything. But what favors him here is that he's going in there against a striker and he can really, really lean on his wrestling to wear down the clock. And I think that that's going to be the game plan for him. If he's able to do that, get this fight to the mat, he has a strong possibility of keeping it there and just dragging out a decision off of Dan Hooker, who's, if he can keep it on his feet, he will definitely go out there and piece him up. But that's the clash of styles that we're looking at. And I'm going to go with Michael Chandler going out there and getting the win and putting himself still at the top of the division, in a very, very crowded top of the lightweight division right now, with a whole lot of question marks surrounding it. Obviously, this evening in particular is going to give us some semblance of some sort of clarity, but it's still going to be incredibly murky at the end of the pay-per-view, no matter what happens.
Pat, you're the tiebreaker here. Which one of us do you like more?
Well, I'm not wrong. I'll tell you that. So when it comes down to it, yeah, I got Dan Hooker winning this, and I am in the camp that let the hate come on at me. I'm in the camp that this is a no-brainer. To me, you've got a young up-and-coming guy that has looked, just each fight looked better and better. If you look at the leaps that Hooker made between the Felder fight to the Poirier fight, even though he ended up losing against Poirier, I mean, he's just getting better. He's young. He just keeps growing. Chandler, on the other hand, is at the tail end of his career. He's in the twilight. He's trying to make one last run, move it over to a different promotion to kind of cement his legacy. And to me, it comes down to Hooker's takedown defense is something like 80%. And when he's been taken down, he has not stayed there. He's almost always just found a way to get back up. He's not quite Max Holloway, but he's certainly similar in his ability as a tall, lanky fighter to just kind of keep moving and get up from that stuff. And I think he's going to end up striking and knocking out Chandler. I think it's going to be a round 1 or round 2 knockout of Chandler. I don't see, Chandler's got knocked out by Patricio. He did get knocked out. I was there cage side. I don't care what he says. He did get knocked out. And then he's fought, a couple of guys since then. But, knocking out Benson Henderson, who was also past his prime, doesn't show to me that, okay, you've reached a new level or you've really grown from that loss. And maybe he has. I could be wrong. Don't know what goes on in the gym. You don't know any of that stuff. I could totally be wrong here. But from all of the tape that I have seen and from what I have seen Dan Hooker do in between fights, I think this is a horrible matchup for Michael Chandler. And I think this will not end up being like a Justin Gaethje situation where a guy comes in with a lot of question marks, proves himself, becomes a big name in the division. I think he's going to get flatlined here. I think it's a round 1 TKO. That's my official prediction.
All right, so before I add more to that point, I'm going to go ahead and demote Mr. Wells. I think you're spot on as far as the style matchup is concerned, and I think out of all the fighters in the lightweight division, at the top of that division, I think Dan Hooker is easily one of the worst style matchups for Michael Chandler at this stage of his career. The volume that Hooker puts on, I don't see Chandler being defensively sound enough to not see that kill shot coming. Hooker isn't necessarily the one-shot kill artist, but I think the accumulation will do it. I see that finish happening though. Third round. I think we're going to be halfway through the third round or so before that finish happens. But still, I think Chandler is not. It's not like Chandler is washed. I don't think he's washed. I just think that this is a bad matchup for someone on the rise while someone is apparently on a decline. My initial desire for Michael Chandler's opening fight for his UFC stint was Nate Diaz, someone who stylistically fits a little better to his game, but then also a bigger name, so you can just maximize what you have with a high profile, free agent like Michael Chandler was. So I think the UFC really dropped the ball on this one, but at the end of the day, at least Dan Hooker can be built up further. I mean, he's clearly one of the bright spots in the future of the lightweight division. So happy to see that. But of course, this is it, the main event. Conor McGregor makes his return against Dustin Poirier we thought this was going to be an interim title at the very least. There's still a chance that still could be sprung on us, for ceremonial weigh-ins or something like that. But fellas, just as far as the 5-round stretch of this fight, does it make the 5-round stretch first and foremost?
No, I don't think it makes the 5-round stretch. I think either way you look at this fight, odds favor a finish for either guy. If Conor's not able to put away Poirier early, which is what I favor happening, I think he puts him away round 1 or round 2. That's what I have as my official prediction. But if Conor can't do that, I think Poirier's volume and just his ability to kind of stay in Conor's face will present a problem to him, right? We saw Conor kind of struggle with that against Nate Diaz. That was a huge part of that. Even in the rematch that he won, he fades, he got a little bit gassed, and at lightweight, he might not have that extra 15 pounds or so. Maybe he's able to go the full 5 rounds, but without any issues, that is. But I think if you get into round 4 or 5, Poirier has all the tools to either finish Conor via TKO or hurt Conor, cause him to, go in for a takedown or something sloppy like he did against Diaz and lock up an easy submission. So I think you either get round 1 or 2 Conor and round 4 or 5, it's Poirier by TKO or submission.
All right. Well, let me start by demoting you, Matt, for the safest prediction in all of history. Matt, let's show some sack. Who wins, Conor or Dustin?
All right. I'll come a little harder than I did in my previous prediction, I guess.
Pause.
Yeah, major pause. Listen, I'm a huge fan of Dustin Poirier. One of my favorite fighters in the UFC, one of my favorite fighters in all of MMA, right? But Conor McGregor, I think, is a tailor-made type of fighter to go out there and beat a fighter like Dustin Poirier. The way Conor controls the octagon at pretty much every moment of every fight he's ever been in, sans Khabib, he controls where the action goes. And he does that by utilizing his range and mixing in kicks with his striking as well. A lot of people forget, you go back to the Jose Aldo fight. Yeah, it was 13 seconds. But a lot of people forget that little push kick that he threw out there to kind of keep Jose back for a split second to try to just gauge the range a little bit more. He does a lot of little things like that may not really pick up on. And he is really smart about pretty much everything he does inside the cage. Dustin's the type of guy who will get in there and he needs to kind of get hit a little bit before he wakes up. That's not a good thing to do against a guy like Conor McGregor, because Conor will knock your block off. Especially at 155, he still has a lot of power. He's proven that he can finish fights at 170, but at 155, I think that really is a sweet spot. He was asked that at the press conference. What do you think your ideal weight is? I think it's 155, and I think that's where he can really, really use his speed and power, the combination in a perfect balance. And I think we're going to see that here in this fight against Dustin. And man, it sucks because Dustin he's really improved a lot over the years, and especially since their first matchup. So I don't see it being like a first round type of finish, but I could see this. I put in my official prediction here at the Body Lock as a 3rd round TKO for McGregor. So that's what I expect to play out. I expect him, to get into a few heated exchanges. I'm not saying Conor's going to come out there unscathed by any means, but I can see him wearing down Dustin over the first, 10 minutes or so, come out in that 3rd round and really put it on him and go ahead and close out the show.
Yeah, I'm feeling the McGregor pick on here as well, but I think he gets it done sooner than that. And it's really no knock on Dustin Poirier. Poirier has made vast improvements since they first met. I believe that was UFC 178. I think it was. He has done so much better than he was that night. We can go back to him winning the interim title. We can just look back to his last fight against Dan Hooker and how amazing that performance was. The problem is, though, I think from an X's and O's standpoint, Poirier just presents all of the things that Conor wants to see, all the things that make his job so much easier. You think about when Poirier is at his best, when it's striking, he's normally in a very square stance. He's normally squared right in front of you, and he's slinging hooks. Against someone with the sort of footwork, with the sort of distance management, with the precision of a Conor McGregor, that square stance is such a liability. Also, from that square stance, it's much harder to do the thing that normally stifles Conor, and that's crowding him, and that's and going for those clinches and dragging your weight on him and whatnot. Very difficult to do that when your feet are in that position. I think every time Dustin feels like he's going to be in his groove, Conor's going to put him back. I think Conor, with a much more sophisticated striking approach, is going to put him back. It's going to take Poirier to act really out of character. And I mean, like, the bell rings and he shoots in for a takedown. And not necessarily to get the takedown, but to just get him thinking about it and then work his offense from there. That's the only way I see Poirier winning this. That being said, I will, granted it was worth a demotion, but Pat, I think you're onto something there. If this does go in the later rounds, I mean, Dustin has a more proven track record in the championship rounds getting it done. McGregor, on the other hand, typically has quick finishes, and he did have that Nate Diaz win, but that was a controversial win. He definitely took a round off in that fight to regain his composure and whatnot. And Poirier is certainly the wrong person to do that with. As far as the conditioning aspects go for Conor, though, I mean, we hear the cliche all the time about this is the best training camp of my life, and I'm in the best shape I've ever been. Man, McGregor looks like it, though. He genuinely looks like, beyond the physical specimen that he was, because he's always been a physical specimen, but this is like next level physical specimen for Conor. So I'm very curious as to how his gas tank plays through this. If we get to see this go down in the stretch, Conor's been very vocal in the last few days. I know he had his interview with our friend Oscar Willis of the Mac Life, talking about how he wants the rounds. He wants to be in there for a longer time because he just hasn't been in the cage that much. If we are to believe what we're hearing about his strength and conditioning regimen right now, just might be able to do that without much of an issue. Just might. So I'm very curious as to how that plays out. But quite frankly, I think if Conor wants to finish this fast, I think he can and will. So I don't see this getting past the second round. I think the first round, the chin is really cracked, and a compromised Poirier gets put down by the second. So should be interesting either way. I do want to see a great fight, and I do think this is going to play out much differently than the first one, even though the result might end up looking kind of similar.
Yeah, and if I could just piggyback on that comment real quick about the the I need to get rounds comment that he said to Oscar there. I don't believe that for a second. These guys do not get paid they don't get paid by the minute. They don't get paid by the hour. They get paid out there to go and finish a fight and go home, right? And paired that comment with what he said at the press conference as well, where he was like, I want to make so many more highlights. You can't make more highlights in a decision fight without getting finishes. So I 100% believe he's going to go out there and try to find an opening early and get Dustin out of there. I think Dustin's good enough to hold it off for a little while. Like I said, third round, I could see this where the finish is coming. I would lean more second rather than fourth if you had to sway me one round or the other. But I 100% believe Conor's going to try to find a finish and not really mess around too much in there. I never believe when a fighter says, I want to get rounds, especially when we're talking about MMA. Like in the boxing world, that's different. Because boxing, boxing, when they have their tune-up fights, they're going to go out there and work on some things because they're boxing guys that are nowhere near their level. It's not the case in MMA. MMA, there's so many different ways you can get finished. So they're going to go out there and try to finish the fight as quickly as possible, more often than not.
But if there's anybody in MMA that actually will take a boxing approach to that, I think it would be Conor. This is someone who is more entrenched in the boxing world than the average MMA fighter, and someone who has the means to have that traditional boxing camp where it's all about you. He's got his own like mansion, on Fight Island or something. So like this is a different sort of money we're dealing with, meaning he's going to have a different sort of training camp. So I think if there is any question mark about whether or not an MMA fighter would be willing to do that, Conor would be I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, but he'd be the guy to do that. I was going to come up with a really big word, but I couldn't think of one in time. So what are you going to do?
If he's doing it, Dustin Poirier is not the right guy to do it against.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, I do think that can get you in trouble big time. If you have Dustin Poirier, stumbling around and waiting to get finished, because you may not have that opportunity again. So definitely think that Conor should just go out there and handle business if the opportunity presents itself, and not try to get any extra rounds in just for fun. Just take another.
I will say there's all this talk about Conor versus Pacquiao after him fighting Poirier, right? And it might be that he wants to go ahead and do that. If we're talking about what makes common sense versus what Conor wants to do, those don't always align, as you guys and I know, right? I fully believe he might really feel confident enough that he'd say, yeah, even though it's Dustin Poirier, I'm going to let him wobble. I'm going to get my rounds in boxing style, because in the back of his head, he wants to fight Pacquiao after this, and he's trying to set that up, or Floyd, or whoever he wants to fight again in boxing. Because again, if you talk about money, that's clearly where he wants to go. At least have more exhibition bouts there just to get bigger paydays. But yeah, I'm with you guys that if he does that, that leaves a big opening, I think, for Dustin to, pounce on if that happens. Then again, I am pretty sure that, unfortunately, as much as I love Dustin Poirier, this is going to be a round one finish. I think Conor's just going to piece him up, and he's still got that power. And Poirier hasn't been finished. I'm trying to think of the last time Poirier's been finished by knockout.
Michael Johnson.
Michael Johnson, right? Yeah, and so that was before his high salon quality haircut. High style, well done salon quality haircut. So maybe that's giving him a little bit more iron there. But yeah, I could see this going multiple ways, especially if Conor decides he wants to, as you said, get the rounds in. If he changes his mind on that and says, "Oh, I'm cracking Poirier here. It seems pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and get some boxing rounds in." I can see Conor doing that because he's the guy that's bold enough to do something like that in the cage.
Yeah. I certainly hope that's not, I certainly hope he just does the smart thing in the moment, and gets it over with it if he sees the opportunity, but you never know. I do think also that I certainly don't want to go down this train very much, but you bring up a very good point, Pat, and that's the shadow of Manny Pacquiao over this somehow, some way. Conor seems to defy logic in the sport of mixed martial arts, and we're talking about things that really make no sense. Like, we have no business talking about Manny Pacquiao in relation to UFC 257, but unfortunately, this is sort of the climate of combat sports right now, and this is a real possibility down the road. But I want to conclude with something more realistic. I want to conclude with Charles Oliveira, who presumably, we'll see how the co-main event plays out, but presumably would be the next person in line to get a crack at the title should Khabib actually vacate it, or the UFC just finally accept his resignation letter. Do you think either one of these men can beat Charles Oliveira? Who would you favor if either Conor or Dustin faced him?
Tell you what, for me, I will need to answer that question after Saturday, because while on paper, I think all four of them could beat Charlie Olives, but I need to see how they perform at this event here on Fight Island first before I can really answer that question with any sort of confidence.
Did this motherfucker just say Charlie Olives?
Yes, I did.
And you're not going to demote him? Talk about safe answers? Are you kidding me right now?
I mean, I'm sorry, Charlie. This man gets promoted for that one.
Oh, fair
So
enough.
Pat,
Fair enough.
how do you see Charles Oliveira doing against either Dustin or Conor, or do you want to go the safe route that Matt picked by saying he wants to see what happens Saturday first? But keep in mind, he only got promoted because he said Charlie Olives.
That's true. That's true. Well, I can't get demoted any farther, but I am still going to be a little bit more bold in this one. I think against Dustin Poirier, Oliveira has a really good shot. I feel like, especially the way Poirier fights, and he's not, a one-hit guy. He never has been. He throws volume to TKO people. That's just his thing. I think that favors somebody like Oliveira, who has a crazy slick ground game. So if he ever got in trouble against Poirier, he could shoot for takedowns, look for other things. I would favor Oliveira against Poirier. It would be close. It'd be a very good matchup, but I think I would favor Oliveira there. Against McGregor, though, as good as Charlie Olives has looked in his past several outings, his chin has still been hit multiple times. And when it has, it's crumpled. And McGregor is still one of the hardest hitting, if not the hardest hitting 155er. I think that, in that fight, Oliveira would have to get a takedown quick to have a shot, because if it was standing and McGregor was able to touch him, I think that would be it. So I think McGregor beats Oliveira. I think Oliveira versus Poirier is closer, but I'd lean Oliveira there.
All right. So fellas, actually one more question before we wrap things up here. So now, who do you think is going to have the best finish? Will it be the main event, the co-main event, or Dana over the pirate streamer who is got like FBI surveillance on their house right now? Who wins?
Listen, I'm not going to entertain Dana's ridiculousness that he wants to be, that he's apparently some secret FBI agent or something right now, some secret FBI overlord surveilling all of the MMA fans across the globe who may be illegally streaming their content. I'm going to go with the winner of the Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier fight as being the highlight of the evening. And as I said a minute ago, I expect that to be Conor providing the knockout. So Conor McGregor with the highlight of the night.
I feel like Dana has been watching Swordfish a lot, and he thinks that I feel like that's the only explanation, right? I can't understand. We're tapping phones. I don't know a single person that, if I'm going to put up, if you're going to put up an illegal stream, I can't imagine calling somebody and be like, hey, yeah, like got everything set up so I could set up my illegal stream later today, like on a phone call. What? Okay, it's whatever. So I'm not going to go down that route, but I think it's going to be Dan Hooker. I think Conor will get a finish. I think it will be big, as is typical Conor finishes. But I think it's going to be Dan Hooker finishing Chandler, and it's going to shock people, because I feel like not a lot of people, like Mr. Wells over here, think that that's going to happen. I think it's going to be, Michael Chandler out, just rolling eyes, doesn't know where he's going. I think it's going to be a big highlight reel for Dan Hooker.
Hold on a second, man. Hold on a damn second. Are you telling me you've seen the entirety of Swordfish? Because I have only seen one scene.
That's the only scene that you need to see right
there. I will strongly argue against that. The movie is hilarious. If you ever want to see Don Cheadle talk for 3 minutes about moving trucks of bandwidth into a house, it's amazing. The logic that they have there is,
I prefer to watch the scene that Brian Ortega got to live in real life. Fellas, I think that will wrap things up for this UFC 257 preview. So to tune into this channel, we will be doing a fight companion. Probably going to get tired of talking to each other for all that time, but we'll get to argue and you'll get to watch it. So I'm Ant Walker. He's Pat Auger. That is Matt Wells. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. And before we go, I just noticed that Matt has his logo on his polo shirt right there, and that's worthy of a promotion. So stay beautiful, stay positive, and stay sexy. Tune in to the Fight Companion. Peace and love.
And the Tailgate Show. Peace.
That too.